All right, here we go. Our brains are wired to resist change. It's science. Look it up. They want to keep us safe. And you know what feels safe? The familiar. The same routines, the same friends, the same places. For many of us, interrupting the norm results in anxiety and discomfort because our brains sense danger in the unknown. But then why is it that we also crave change? When life becomes too monotonous, we may start to feel stuck, bored. I think it's because, logically, we know that change is what makes life worth living. Without it, life is fine. Good, even. But that little explosion of joy we occasionally experience, it most often comes when we do something different. And sometimes all it takes is something little, like stopping in a new coffee shop, something within our control. But sometimes, change is out of our control. And it's big, and it's scary, and it happens all at once. And that's what's happening to me. So I realize this does make it look like we've moved to Australia. This is Australia. That is not the case, but please stay with me on this journey. It's going to be worth it, I promise. So we are in fact in Australia, and the reason that I am choosing to start this series here, also sorry if you can hear opera music in the background, if somebody is playing opera music. Maybe that'll create nice ambiance for you. The reason that I'm choosing to start this series here is because this trip is the result of a pretty pivotal change in my life last year. The birds will keep interrupting. It's also kind of the beginning of many more changes to come. Also, I just really wanted to document this trip because we're in motherfucking Australia. But to be honest, I don't really like making regular travel vlogs because it stresses me out. I'm like, should I film this? Should I not film this? Oh shoot, I should have filmed that. And then I'm just not having fun. I'm just working. I don't really understand how Australians think with all these birds always making noise. So basically a more structured format makes it more fun for me, and I hope it makes it more fun for you too. I'm going inside now because our Airbnb host just walked by, and now I'm embarrassed that he saw me doing my job of talking to a camera. So anyways, the series about change. It's kind of funny because I feel like for the past 3 years or so, I've been yearning for some sort of change. Like for so much of my life, I was working towards finding a healthy relationship and finding stable friends and a nice home and a good job. And a few years into having all those things, now my brain's like, so we're getting a little bored. It was ready for something different, but nothing different was really happening. Life was staying pretty stagnant, and I didn't really want to do anything to mix things up because I didn't want to mess up all the good things I had going on. You know, in the past, it was like, I felt like there was always something in my life that could be improved. So when I would make a change, it would kind of feel like I had nothing to lose, but now it felt like I had a lot to lose. But then last year, the universe was kind of like, well, if you're not going to change anything yourself, I'm just going to do it for you. And then this year was like, you thought last year was a little scary, I'm gonna smother you and change this year. So we're gonna get to that later though. We need to talk about what happened last year first, because that was kind of the first domino to fall in a series of dominoes that represent change. The dominoes of change of my life. I don't think that makes sense, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's really hard to think with the birds, I'm telling you. But so the change that started everything last year was when my friend Nicole told me she was moving to Pittsburgh. This was my first time in my 8 years in Chicago that one of my good friends was leaving. And I was happy for her, but that happiness was a thin layer of frosting on top of a dense cake of sadness, fear, and worry. Because not only was she one of my closest friends in the city, but she was kind of the reason I had met most of my friends in the first place. See, Nicole and I met at work about a year after I moved to Chicago. And unlike most people I'd met, she actually wanted to hang out with me more than once, and she would invite me to hang out with her and her friends, many of whom already knew each other, and to my surprise, they were actually fun and welcoming. I was the new person in the group, but they never made me feel that way. And I've since forged my own relationships with these people, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but think, my main tie to this group of friends is leaving, and will the rest of my friendships unravel when she does?
There's a technique called ninja walk. And what ninja walk does is that it takes the majority of the shape from your footage.
So when you're holding the camera, you walk like this.
Is that good?
I think so. David and I are watching a video on how to make better travel videos because like I said before, I'm not really great at making travel videos. So we found this class on Skillshare called Practical Tips to Make a Great Cinematic Travel Video. And yes, you guessed it, Skillshare is the sponsor of today's video. So we just learned from our man Adi the ninja walk technique to get that smooth shot, that gimbal-like shot. You gotta bend your knees. Now we have to test you.
To test me?
Pretend I'm outside in nature. I'm like, capture me nicely in nature, and now ninja walk. Nature.
Backwards ninja walk, look at this.
Whoa, advanced. Skillshare has thousands of classes. It is actually the largest online learning community for creatives. So if you're like, I want to learn to paint, there's a class for that. If you're like, I want to be more productive, there's a class for that. If you're like, I want to get better at writing and journaling, there's a class for that, and so on and so forth. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will get a 1-month free trial, so make sure to check it out soon. Now going back to what we were talking about yesterday, or like 2 minutes ago in your case, my friend moving was not exactly the type of change I was hoping for. I was hoping for more of like a, hey, you make a lot more money now, you can go buy a house. Or like, hey, the American government the past year was just a sick joke. Here's the real government. But instead it was like, your friend is leaving. So that's great. In hindsight though, I feel like it was preparing me for the avalanche of change that's coming this year. And I feel like it also acted as a reminder that I'm capable of dealing with change. Because like with anything, when you're out of practice with something, you don't feel as confident in it. And I would say I haven't dealt with really any significant change since like 2020. So I think consciously I was sad about my friend leaving, but subconsciously I was also just scared that I wouldn't be able to deal with it. But then I got a DM. It was from this girl who lived in Florida who I had briefly met through one of David's friends. She came to visit Chicago a couple summers ago, and I spent maybe an hour or two total with her, and to be quite honest, I thought she would just go back to Florida and I would never see her again. But now, here she was in my DMs essentially asking, do you want to be friends? It turns out she was moving to Chicago and she really enjoyed hanging out with me and my friends, and she was basically just wondering, like, when I get there, do you want to hang out? Also, can you hear all of the outdoor noises right now? The birds here wake up at like 5:30 in the morning. And there's a bunch of them that sound like monkeys. Thought monkeys were going to be out there. Nope, just birds. Turns out there's actually no monkeys whatsoever in Australia, which was a little surprising to me. So basically within like 1 month, one friend told me she was leaving Chicago, and a potential new friend told me that she was moving to Chicago. And she wasn't a Nicole replacement. Like, I never saw her that way. But I did see it as an opportunity to do what Nicole had done for me 6 years ago, which was welcome a new person into my group of friends. And the timing of it was interesting too, because I felt like it was a reminder, like, hey Morgan, even though you're 30, you can still make new friends. New people will still come into your life. And like, if one friend goes to do something different, it doesn't mean that you're gonna be alone. And I do think I really needed that reminder because I hadn't made a new friend in like 7 years. So I texted this girl back, her name is Grace. I texted her back and I said, yeah, let's get dinner when you get here. So 6 months later, we did just that. And now, not even a year later, we're in Australia together. So how'd we get here? Well, Grace's boyfriend moved to New Zealand last year, and they planned to meet up in Australia for a month to travel around together. And because I'm intrusive and have always wanted to go to Australia, I invited David and myself to join them for part of their trip. I'm kidding, I asked nicely, and they said of course. But I probably wouldn't be here if Nicole hadn't left, because that motivated me to expand my circle of friends and say yes to things like the girl I met once who slid into my DMs. I just kind of think when something good comes into our lives, it's easy to assume that if that thing ends or changes, life will feel dark. And sometimes that's true, but it's rarely permanent. In fact, sometimes it's the necessary push you need to take opportunities you normally wouldn't, to talk to people you don't know, to go to places you've never been. David and I are in a new location now. We're in Kalala Beach. We finished up in Sydney with our friends and we've split off. They're going to Brisbane and we have come south to Kalala Beach, which I just said. So we're going to be hanging out here for a couple of days and then we're going to go to Melbourne, Melbourne. It just doesn't sound right when I say it like that. But that's where we're going to finish our trip after this. Today we took surf lessons. To book it, we had to email these people, Sue and Pete, at their personal email address. Upon doing so, Pete told us to text Sue and tell her what day we wanted to surf. Sue texted us back, said, sounds good, we'll meet at 11:15. So we pull up to the address Sue gave us. It is Sue and Pete's personal home. There's a woman sitting outside. It's like, are you here for the surf lesson? We're like, yeah. She said, okay, let me get my mom. She's inside her home. She's saying, mom, 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 mom. Mom comes out. Mom is Sue. Sue is an Australian bohemian queen. White wavy hair, wearing a white poncho-like top, a long skirt. Sue's like, what time did we schedule the lesson for? Sue doesn't know what time she texted us. Sue is going with the flow. We say we scheduled it for 11:15. She says, okay, my husband Pete's gonna run the lesson. Pete's nowhere to be seen. Sue says Pete went to check the surf and probably decided to take a surf himself, got distracted and lost track of time. Sue sends her daughter to go get Pete. Pete shows up, he's wearing a t-shirt with a hole in it and a towel wrapped around his waist. Full vibe.
Can I join you in your recounting of this tale?
Yes. I'm just telling them about Pete and Sue.
Pete and Sue, yeah.
What was I saying? Well, Pete has us pick our boards up. They're ginormous. David and I both have to carry them, one in front, one in back. We walk our boards to the beach. I'm about 0.5 seconds from dropping these boards and my arm's never working again when Pete finally says, you can set the boards down here. Pete draws some fake boards in the sand. Pete's gonna teach us how to stand up on the board. To do this, Pete takes off his towel. Pete is wearing a Speedo. If I had to guess, Pete is about 60 years old and Pete is hairy. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I am saying it's a thing. I'm on the ground, David's on the ground, Pete is on the ground. This is how far I am from Pete's bare legs. Instead of listening to Pete explain to me how to get up on the board, I am actively trying to not make eye contact with his legs. Pete's daughter comes down to the beach. She's gonna be the one in the water actually helping us. Thank God. Pete was a lovely man. I don't know if I could have done 2 hours with Pete and his legs. We get in the water. I get hit by a wave. Immediately I turn to David. I'm like, I cannot do this. I'm gonna drown. I'm gonna cry. Because while David is a fish and would prefer to live in the water, I am a little bitch when it comes to water. And the girl, I think her name was Anna, she's like, no worries, you know, in that accent that they have. She's like, no worries, we'll stick to the small waves. I was like, thank you, Anna. That sounds great. Your accent makes me feel like I can do anything. Anna helps me get up on the board. I do it. I surf. I don't drown. I don't cry. David falls a lot because he may not be a little bitch when it comes to water, but he does not have the grace and center of gravity of a 5'7" former gymnast. So anyways, super chill, super nice people. I feel like not only did we learn to surf, and by we, I mean I learned to surf, David fell off a lot, but we also got a peek at like authentic small town Australian coastal living. That was a lot of adjectives. I feel like we got a peek at that. The experience was also a classic case of me assuming the worst. When presented with an unknown or like learning a new thing, I almost always assume that I will be bad at it or assume the worst scenario. It's a defense mechanism. I talk about it with my therapist, but it's so I don't get hurt. I can't get hurt or be embarrassed if I assume the worst is gonna happen anyways. But then sometimes it can also be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So like I expect that I'm gonna be bad at surfing, I don't want to embarrass myself, and I try to dip out before I even try. But as it turns out, I was pretty good at surfing, because again, David fell a lot, and I'd not.
What was your problem?
But basically, I like to catastrophize when any sort of change comes about. And so with the changes coming this year, I am actively trying to not assume the worst. I'm trying to instead picture the best. Picture me standing up on the surfboard, metaphorically, and really believing that that's possible. I still recognize that things could go wrong and not be perfect, but I'm not spiraling into catastrophe like my brain typically wants to do. So anyways, with that, you want a quick tour of this Airbnb? We've got the beach right there, doing its beach thing. Got a little bench where you can watch the beach. There's David sitting in his Adirondack chair. Then we've got the inside. Just a cute little cottage. And then the bedrooms are over there. You get it. So today we surfed, and tomorrow we're going to Booteree National Park. And then from there, we will go on to Melbourne. So, oh no, there's a person outside at the home next to us. Oh, he's going away. Oh, this is embarrassing. Okay, I'll see you again after Booteree National Park. Up until now, I thought I at least had an idea of what my path forward looked like. But now it's more of a blank canvas. A canvas that my brain likes to fill with the worst possible scenarios. And it's doing that because, like I said before, our brains are wired to protect us. On the most fundamental level, they resist change because they believe it'll help us live longer. But I think our souls seek change so that we can live better. My anxiety is telling me to be scared about what comes next after this trip. But I'm not going to worry about problems that my mind has made up. Problems that don't yet exist. My brain can be scared of the unknown, while my soul is excited about it. And the excitement is what I'm choosing to focus on. Because yeah, it's reassuring to know your path in advance, to know where to step so you don't trip, to know when the best views are coming up, to know when the hard parts will be over. But it's always been the moments I don't see coming that have made life feel more whimsical, more blissful. My best memories have come from taking risks and getting a little lost. They've come from letting my soul guide me for a moment instead of my brain. So yes, it can be scary to start down a path when you don't know what lies around the corner, but it can also be breathtaking to start down a path when you don't know what lies around the corner. So how long until you have to go?
I think it's like